Here's the big question this show answers. How do we leverage technology and human science to positively impact our personal and professional life? The Tech Human Experience has the answer. Here's your host, Inc. 5000 tech founder, neuroscience junkie, and Navy SEAL wannabe, Javier Guerra.
Hello, my fellow tech humans. Today's guest is a chief confidence igniter, keynote speaker, and confident living catalyst with over 2 decades of experience working with tech giants like Microsoft, Dell, and Salesforce. She is the epitome of high performance and resilience. On a lighter note, she's been described as a breath of fresh air who can ignite a room with her boundless energy. Please welcome Meshell Baker. Always great talking with you, Meshell.
Well, thank you so much, Javier. It's so good to be here. Excited to have this conversation and just, let's light it up.
Oh, yeah. There we go. I wanted to start off the conversation with just a quick stat. And it has to do with LinkedIn. In 2021, LinkedIn reports revealed that 92% of hiring professionals consider soft skills to be equally or more important than hard skills. What's your take on this?
Well, great question, great stat, and I believe it's very true. For the spaces that I exist in, the work that I've been doing, a soft skill is more of that emotional skill. It's something that's intrinsic to someone's character or their personality, something they may be dealing with. And when a company doesn't address that, they can unintentionally create volatile or hostile workplaces because people are dealing with so much. And I think it's great that they're looking at people's ability to be flexible and adaptable, critical thinkers, creative, and all of those are soft skills, right? So when you have those at high levels, you will get better players, and you will definitely have greater results.
So how do you think confidence plays a role in like cultivating soft skills?
Well, confidence is basically, and it's interesting. So there's this misnomer that people don't understand. People hear confidence and they think positive, right? So you say confidence, oh, people have confidence. That's great. Well, people have confidence all the time. Confidence is not a negative or positive attribute. It's just your unwavering belief in circumstances or situation or people. You can be absolutely confident that things don't work in your favor. So what I basically do is help people to understand that and to help them tip the scale so that they're believing for more favorable outcomes. So once you're able to utilize your limitless mindset, thoughts, right, your imagination, and to think favorable outcomes, to assume good intentions in the workplace, you actually become formidable because you are now using what you've been using against yourself, against the workplace, against your colleagues, and creating more favorable outcomes consistently. And it becomes boundless, right? If you've seen anybody who is a problematic employee generally becomes more problematic because it's expansive in whatever direction it's flowing.
Yeah, it makes me think of the second law of thermodynamics, right? It's that we live in a universe that is either expanding or contracting, right?
Yes.
So it's either expanding, growing, or decaying in a sense, and it's like we need to continuously expand and
Yes.
so yeah, it made me think about that. So I never thought about it that way though. That if you have like a toxic employee, and we've had those before, right? And it's very important to cut those out, like nip it in the bud, because they will infect the rest of the group. And I guess that's part of that expansion, right? It would
Yes.
like just spread through your team. Interesting.
Yes, and there are some occasions where that toxic employee, when you have a leader who can look and discover, the thorn, right? Just thinking about a children's book where they had a thorn in their paw, right? The lion, and you took it out and they became your best friend and had your back and did whatever you wanted them to do. When you can find and pluck that and turn the same level of energy, because it's just thermodynamics. Emotions are just energy. We put so much weight around emotions. It's simply an energy. So when you can sway that energy to be beneficial to the organization, you will have someone who is loyal and incredible in the workplace.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't get me started on energy because we're gonna be here all day. So we can do a whole podcast about energy. Yeah, but yeah, it's a you're getting me fired up about this topic for sure. So let's dive into the main topic for today: unstoppable women. Meshell Baker on empowering women in tech. Today, we're going to unravel the secrets of becoming unstoppable in an ever-changing, often uncertain world. Meshell has carved a niche for herself by focusing on women initiatives within male-dominated industries like technology, automotive, and transportation. We'll explore how Meshell's transformative coaching combats imposter syndrome and fosters resilience. Tune in for actionable strategies for leading with confidence in a rapidly changing technology landscape. So again, Meshell, thank you for giving us your time and attention today. I'm very passionate about the things that you're doing, and I really enjoy talking about this. So I'll try to contain myself as we have these conversations. In relation to the human edge over AI, right? Artificial intelligence. How can women leverage emotional intelligence for better problem solving or, leadership in the technology industry?
Yeah, great question. And one, so I just want to reframe. And I had someone she's absolutely incredible, part of another organization, and she helped me reframe. So I no longer say artificial intelligence. I actually say assisted intelligence, right? So I think of it as a partner, right? So these tools are here to partner with us and help us to be more efficient, and more credible, to get things done in a quicker manner. And when people actually acknowledge that and they learn. So the one thing about AI is that it learns really fast. The interesting thing about humans is we have a capacity to learn fast, maybe not as fast. And as we prepare ourselves and we have a growth mindset, you will interpret change very different than when you have a fixed mindset. So fixed mindset has an expectation that things will go a certain way, or that people need to behave or respond. I call it the shoulda, woulda, couldas. Right. So when you're hearing that in conversation, it's a very fixed mindset, because there is a conversation about changing something that is impossible to change. It's the past. All right. A growth mindset assesses what is in front of you, looks at the past as possibly a tool if necessary. If not, they know that the past it's not an indicator of the future, right? But use it as a leveraging point of learning, and then moves forward to create a result that will be beneficial for all involved in the future. So what happens is when people are not constantly in a continuous improvement of themselves, change becomes difficult to deal with emotionally. It causes fear. And as humans, we have misconstrued fear for danger. Danger means you're about to die, harm is about to happen. Fear is just you're telling a story because you're uncomfortable, inconvenienced, or uncertain. Those are my three: uncomfortable, inconvenienced, or uncertain. And now you've decided to tell your story that this is bad, this is awful, this is unfair, this shouldn't have happened to me. Why is this happening to me? Instead of actually sitting still in the physicality of that motion and deciding that this is one situation and I'm incredible and I am here at this moment in time. There's nothing I can't overcome or I cannot move forward in. And that's
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
basically talk and train and teach people to do.
Yeah, and I've had the opportunity to go to some very transformative seminars, weekends, like you name it, right? I've had the opportunity to sit through one of your events, your workshops as well, which was amazing. And but it makes me think about, it's a concept of the fear lives in the past, right? And it will, it's like, I'm sorry, it's more of like regret and stuff like that live in the past, but the fear is kind of more the fear of the future. But if you're present, like that hasn't happened yet, right? And so it's like we're projecting this fear on our futures that hasn't even happened yet. And if you really break it down and think about it, it's almost like insanity, right? Because it hasn't happened, but yet we're afraid of it and we're letting it hold us back. And when you really dig into a lot of these emotional experiences, right, it's very eye-opening on how the human psyche works and how we, in a sense, shoot ourselves in the foot, right? Quite often, so to speak.
Exactly. You said that so well. And it goes back to emotion, kind of like that first question you asked me, Javier. And that's one of the things that I look at, and when you think about it's something that we really talk about, people don't invest in it. I mean, I tell like some of the organizations that I've worked with, I said, if you're hiring people who graduated from high school, you're probably getting the emotional equivalent of eighth graders, and you're expecting them to be able to deal with change that's getting faster and faster, which is making them massively uncomfortable. So you like really, it's so when we start actually addressing it and letting people know that this is what you're feeling is absolutely normal. This is what all humans feel, and it may not be your fault that you can't deal with it because maybe you weren't raised in an environment where anybody taught you to deal with it because they couldn't deal with it because they didn't have as much change as we have. So it probably wasn't necessary for them to deal with it the way you are now, and you're still 100% responsible, right? It's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. And the sooner you face it, the more incredible your life and the work, right? You spend most of your waking hours at work. So if you're not enjoying the workplace, just stick a fork in it. Life is over. Like, I mean, if you don't like your job, that's a miserable life, period.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important. It's
Yeah. So this
unfortunately,
conversation is,
yeah,
and I really put it that clear to people why it's so necessary to deal with the emotions because they will change everything. The ripple effect and the expansiveness in the of the life you get to live as someone who is emotionally intelligent, emotionally mature, and emotionally equipped is it's boundless. It is
yeah,
literally boundless.
yeah, and it's so tough, and it's crazy. It's mind-boggling that, like, I don't know if they're up to date, but like I know that Gallup has said that like 70% of the U.S. workforce is not engaged at work, and it's primarily, I mean, if they're not enjoying what they're doing, they're not going to be engaged, right? And so you spend so much time at work. It's so important for you to enjoy what you're doing and be fulfilled, so to speak, right? But from an emotional intelligence perspective, what's your take on if it can be developed? There's just something you're born with, right? Like, can you give us any color around that?
Well, yeah, and a great question. And I don't. Nobody is born with emotional intelligence. If it's not, and very few people have a situation where it's developed in their household,
Yeah,
right?
and
So
that's kind of
basically,
what I meant more of like, is it just something you learn as a child or growing up or you
no,
know,
yeah,
yeah,
it's not. You learn it if you are around adults who will help you to deal with fear. So when children are raised in environments where when they are afraid of something, the parent says, "Hey, you got this. You're amazing. This is nothing. You can have anything you want." And they take kids out and they help them face their fears and they help them to get back up and they really have conversations about how incredible you are and how life is limitless as well as you are. That's someone who will be emotionally mature because they will tell this once they feel the internal feeling, right, of being uncomfortable, they will step through it. They will face it down and they'll move forward because they understand everything we want as human beings is on the other side of fear. If you could simplify and take away anything you hear off today, everything you want is on the other side of anything you fear, and you know what you fear because you're talking about it as a problem. That's your greatest fear. The most prevalent problem that you have in the workplace is the fear that you're being called to deal with, because once you deal with it, it won't happen again. And you will feel so proud of yourself, you will create and begin to exude confidence. The more you face down your fears, the more you generate your own confidence that no one can take from you. See, if you get confident, if you build confidence on external things, someone can always take it. When you build it internally, it creates an emotional intelligence and an armament that no one can take from you.
Yeah, it's very deep, right? I've it makes me think about, I've struggled with, kind of projecting my self-worth on maybe the relationships I'm in or whatever I'm accomplishing, right? But I had to learn first to identify that, but then to shift that focus inwardly and in a sense become happy with me, who I am, not based on who I'm with or not based on what I've created or what success that I've, accomplished. And also, of course, overcoming the fears and then teaching, my kids to overcome those fears. It's extremely powerful. And it's very difficult to get that education. You have to look for it. Like you don't typically get that at home or in school, right? It's something you have to really pursue. Find somebody to educate you in that space. So it's interesting. It's crazy to me that it's not more readily taught. But in your opinion, how do you think organizations can integrate emotional intelligence, EQ, into culture, so to speak?
I mean, it's so interesting because there's so many organizations that are, teaching EQ, have incorporated in EQ. And one of the simplest things to do is, have leadership, right? First, right? If they're, it has to trickle down. So it rarely goes up. Right. If you have the employees learn it, but then that first line of management doesn't know it, they're not going to understand it and they're going to thwart it. So it really does have to come from the top down. And it's in the culture. So one of the things, one simple thing I encourage people to do is to start meetings off with wins. Like, what is something that happened amazing, and what is something you'd like to walk away with this meeting from? So you're changing the energetic level of the meeting, which will change the emotional output of the people in the meeting. Right. And then having them create a future focus. Well, you take a note of that. And so now you have people who have great energy and they're thinking about possibility. That combination generally creates great meetings. Celebrating people, right? When they do something incredible, celebrating people when they make a mistake because they've challenged themselves to do something different. Now, if it's repeated mistakes, that's a problem, right? But of course, you want people to become innovative and creative because you got so many people that are scared. They're scared to make a mistake. They're scared to be rejected. They're scared to look bad. So when you can find simple, consistent ways for people to feel like they've been seen and heard, you'll be amazed at what'll start to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. The picture I got in my mind when you were saying that was, Tesla said that if you want to uncover the secrets of the universe, it's you think in form of energy, vibration, and I don't know, wavelength. I forgot what the third one was, but what I pictured was like you're walking into a room and like a lot of people they're just busy, they're tapped out, right? And they have so much on their plate, they're stressed out. I'll have to go to another meeting. Right. But if you can, in a sense, kind of tune those people in that meeting and get them on that, positive energy wavelength of where everyone's kind of vibrating at that positive frequency, well, then you're absolutely right. You're just going to create more positivity through the rest of that meeting, theoretically. Right. But I've never thought about it in that perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love what you said. It reminds me a little phraseology that people often hear me see. You can't get an apple tree from an orange seed.
Yeah.
That basically for me means that you cannot create powerful, positive, productive, and profitable outcomes from negative mindsets. Absolutely impossible. So you want to get people in a space where they believe in possibility, they're creative, they're engaged. And a lot of times it's just as simple of like, just have people, how do you create where today is going to be a great day at work? Right? And the expectation is not that when it's going to transform, because it might take longer than you expect, and that's where people get in trouble. They're like, "Oh, I've been doing this for 2 weeks and it isn't working." Who told you it was going to work in 2 weeks? You're dealing with people's mindsets. You're dealing with an adult who has an entrenched mindset. So your goal is not. I tell people your goal is not win, WHEN. Your goal is to keep going until you WIN.
Okay. That's like
Period. So
the,
when you set that, you will
yeah,
always win. You'll always
yeah,
win.
yeah.
When you get a
Okay.
timeline and you start trying to put human beings in a timeline, which is difficult because we have, people need to, make forecasts and they need results. And I deal with sales teams. Like nobody wants to hear that. And research and data has shown time and time again, when you invest in shifting people's mindsets, you always get the results.
Yeah, yeah, and that's that's something I'm really big on, and we actually start every meeting with the positive, right? What's the positive, professional positive that happened last week, right? But like just when you were talking there, I just kind of it's like what, like I should probably had that deeper understanding there. It's like from a Tesla perspective, but you learn something new every day. Let's move to like male dominated industries, right? Or just talking a little bit more about that. So, you've had the opportunity to make really a significant impact, focusing on really women's initiatives in male dominated industries. What are some actionable strategies that women in tech can use to really lead confidently and make an impact?
Yeah, well, great question. And as I connect with these women in these different industries, what I initially hear from almost all of them is that they're not being seen, they're not being heard, they're being looked over. Right? They feel. So that's the most common word that I'll hear. Right? They feel like they have a sense of unfairness. Right? So, and I always tell people it's not what you feel, it's what you will. Right? So when you create a favorable outcome, so the reason you keep feeling this way is because you keep expecting to feel this way. So first, let's set and decide, how is it you want to feel? What do you believe you deserve? What do you believe would be a better outcome? So let's start to script that out. The mind you cannot create an outcome that you have not foreseen, which is like it's basic thermodynamics of the human mind that is not discussed or talked about anywhere. Right? What you speak about, you will bring about consistently 100% of the time. So let's start having conversations about what a better workplace feels like for you, what a better conversation looks like for you. And then it's up to you to be relentless, and you're practicing in pursuit of that regardless of what the other person says. So what people generally do is say they want something better, and then they go and make one or two, three attempts, and then when the other person doesn't behave in the way they deem they should, then they say it doesn't work. It's never about them. It's only about you and your confidence that you have given the best, most confident, most intelligent, version of yourself, regardless of what someone else does. You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for yourself. And that's the work that I explain to people. When you can start to internalize your own confidence, regardless of your circumstances and your fellow colleagues, that's when you will start to get more of the WINs, the wins.
Yeah, I've actually created a diagram, and I bring this up periodically with my team. I'm going to do it again here at our next quarterly kickoff. Is because I think, I don't know who said it, but it's like people have to hear something like 7 times before it really sinks in. And so I'll bring things back and bring things back, but really it's the expectation. It's like a diagram of humans and kind of way the brain works. In a sense, it's okay if you're walking into a situation like you said, and you're expecting to get this result, your brain will literally look to prove itself right. So if you have that opinion like, oh, wait, here we go again. I'm walking into this meeting and It's going to be male dominated and this and that, right? Like your brain wants to be right in all circumstances. So it will look for any points or any occurrences that happen to say, see, there it is. They will look for the evidence, right? And so if you're not deciding what you want and just claiming it and then saying, okay, I'm going to work in here in a sense, walk in here and with an open mind and just create this scenario and this is what's going to be and kind of affirm it in a sense, then you're going to be looking for the evidence of the negative to prove yourself right, and you will go down that negative track. And it's our minds are much more powerful than we realize.
Much
right?
more, yes,
Yeah.
much more powerful. And we as human beings have been conditioned to continue to look at external stimuli and results versus to internalize. And so it's, that's why I really enjoyed this conversation as someone who knew none of this 5-10 years ago, and just took a deep dive in it because I found it amazing. I was like, oh my God, right? First I was like, oh, I created the dumpster fire, that's my life. Then I kind of felt bad, and then it didn't last long because then the next thing is like, wait, if I created that, then I just got curious, what can I create, right? And that's where you start to go on a journey, and in the process you're going to hit landmines. You're going to find out there's blind spots and all kinds of self-limiting beliefs, and that's the fun part of being a human and starting to make it into a game. And that's why I love the work that I get to do, is when people can kind of gamify confidence and gamify your career and your emotional intelligence, your positive intelligence. You will exceed your own expectations.
Nice. Yeah. I'd love to talk more about that. And I want to keep us here all day, right? You've got a hard stop here soon. So, one more thing as far as around career transition. What advice would you offer to women considering the transition, right? Like they say that people in college right now, they're going to change their career like 5 times, right? So we have to get good at change. But what advice could you give, women that are really making these transitions, especially those that are maybe, basically completing like unrelated backgrounds, right? Like maybe they're switching, they don't really have that study in that field, right?
Yes. Yes. So one of the biggest things, and I love this question, is if you're looking at transitioning, especially into an area where you don't have background, you don't necessarily have experience, clarify your why. So why do you want to make that switch, and find something about it that you believe is going to bring you some type of fulfillment, satisfaction, or joy. Because going into an arena or an area that you're unfamiliar with, I don't even like the word hard, but this is going to be hard. You're going to probably make more mistakes than you've ever made, feel more imposter than you've ever felt, have moments of embarrassment, and all of that stuff is going to come up. And if it's something that you enjoy, something that you believe that you'll be great at, or something you've thought about or wish you could have done, or maybe should have majored in school, you will have the fortitude and the persistence and resilience to keep going, and you'll find your way. So without that clear why of heading in that direction, you'll give up. And then in order, like you said, the brain, our brain doesn't like to feel bad. So instead of learning from a lot of things, we actually begin to tell the story and pointing outwards and blaming, so that we don't have to feel bad, right? Oh my God, they didn't give me a break and they were too hard on me. And, so generally, and that could still happen anyway, but I would really think about why that direction, and then definitely find a mentor. Find a mentor. One of the first things I did when I realized that, assisted intelligence wasn't going anywhere, and I heard some of the groups are people complaining about it, and I'm like, well, it's change, and change is inevitable, and I didn't want to complain, was I started looking for other places to go have that conversation. You got Meetup, you can go on Eventbrite, there's, LinkedIn, conversations, podcasts. It is up to you to inundate yourself with information and knowledge as much as possible. The more you have within you about any subject matter, the more comfortable you'll feel asking questions, the more comfortable you'll feel making mistakes, the more comfortable you'll feel approaching people. And that's where success comes. It's not that you know everything, it's your willingness to be collective, to be able to be approachable and to be willing to approach. That's where you find more success than anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important, and it makes me, I keep thinking back about mindset, right? We were talking about mindset, as far as you obviously help people shift their mindsets, but can you talk a little bit about particularly how that can be very empowering to women in tech, that are maybe solving problems or innovating, right,
Yes.
in the tech industry?
Yes, yes. So mindset work is basically, there's a effect. So our human brain is roughly anywhere between, so there's studies that range between 86 billion to 100 billion neurons. So that's basically a super duper duper computer, right? And all our brain does is synthesize. As Javier mentioned earlier, every time we ask ourselves a question, our brain will validate all external stimuli, our memory, our database to answer that question. Your brain is a storehouse and a warehouse of information. That's why when you've heard people say everything you need to know is inside of you, because when you ask yourself appropriate questions, you will generate an answer and or someone or something to go reach out to. So if you don't have the answer, your brain will remember everything you already know, everything you've read, everything you've heard, everything you've seen, and it will generate a response for you. So having said that, when you are in a field where you're constantly creating or innovating or looking to solve, the more you can access that, the more you will be valuable. Like one of the things I teach my clients, and that's something I do myself, whenever I'm on a meeting, I go into the meeting with the full knowledge that I will be one, if not the most valuable person in that meeting. I got 186 to 100 billion brain cells, and they're only going to be talking about a handful of things on the agenda. There's no way I don't have enough information and knowledge and background in me to help them to synthesize all data to help them with outcomes.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. It makes me think about our DNA. Our DNA in itself, I think it's something that can store the amount of data as like 80,000 compact discs, right? And so that's basically dormant potential that we are releasing, literally baked into our DNA as we push through our comfort zone and make ourselves uncomfortable. We are literally expanding our capabilities, and it's physiological and genetic. And it's, science proves that you have literally unlimited potential baked into your DNA. Yet, like, we shoot ourselves in the foot and like we're beating our head against the wall and blaming, like you said, right? Like, but we have what it takes. It's just we have to unlock it, and we have to decide that we're going to do it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And again, so as I said, it's interesting how many people have tried that and go, oh my God, it works. So once I get on a meeting, I say I'm going to be most valuable, be one of the most, if not the most valuable person on the call. I don't care what anybody else says. And I synthesize everything that everybody else says as an opportunity to add and expand on it, instead of, oh my God, I wish I would have thought of that, or I was going to say that, right? Which limits. So the mind hasn't gone anywhere. It stays on that little one thing, that one note, instead of becoming expansive in the moment.
Interesting. So it's like you get hyper focused and stuck on that coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yep.
Huh.
Or if somebody responds in a way that hits an emotional, because if you're not emotionally intelligent, they'll say something or respond in a way that triggers you to think that they were talking bad, or they don't believe you, or they don't think you're valuable because of past, because you haven't matured your emotional intelligence to know that they could have meant anything. And because you decide to be valuable, you don't care what they said, because your mind is going to bypass that as a trigger. Your mind's only goal is to be valuable. We literally dictate the outcomes based on how we show. How you start anything says a lot about how you finish. And that's the zone. So when you think about athletes and entertainers, right? I was telling someone, you don't pay when you go to watch an athlete pay, LeBron or whatever, when you go see them play a game, you're not paying for them for them to pay in that game. You pay the fee you pay because they practice that shot 10,000 times. That's what makes them valuable. And that's all mindset work is. Someone who has taken the opportunity to stretch their mind to the belief that there's limitless possibility for them to be successful in this role. And so, as a woman in tech, as a woman in any industry, right, bypassing anything that happened before you, because everyone before you was not you. If you don't hear this, they were not you. Like, I literally, in my mind, every time I go somewhere, there's a 20-foot doors that are red and they open and they say, Michelle's here.
Nice. And don't forget the red carpet.
Right, the red, all
carpet.
this stuff, right? So Michelle's here. And it's not it's not for a sense of pride. It's for me to remind myself that for such a time in this universe, I believe that the only time we have is now. The past is gone, the future hasn't happened, and it's all happening right now. So every choice I make right now has a powerful impact. So I choose in that moment to believe that I was put here. It's not an accident. I'm here. I'm a gift. I'm a blessing. And yeah, let's go do this. Let's go do this to get past my ego of emotions that I'm scared. They don't know me. I'm a black woman. Oh, I could go on and on for numerous and countless reasons to make myself feel insecure and uncomfortable. I decide to think of countless reasons why to be magnanimous and incredible and unstoppable.
Magnanimous, I like that.
Magnanimous Michelle.
Yeah, so it's it makes me think about and I'm drawing a blank. It's like setting an intention, right? It's like you're literally setting that intention and kind of creating that energetic space, so to speak, and walking in with that intention. But it's like input output, right? It's like what you put in is what you're going to get out. And if you're not starting off from some good inputs, then what do you expect?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we're getting close on time here. But in your opinion, Meshell, what technology do you think the world needs that doesn't quite yet exist?
Ooh. It comes back to resilience and emotion. So an app where people could just quickly rejigger their emotions or their mindset to limitless possibility. Right? We're so quick to judge. We're so quick to be cruel. We're so quick to count people out, to speak negatively, to gossip. And I'm like, whatever it takes to get people to do the opposite, right? To speak kind, to be affirming, to be helpful, to be thoughtful, right? Where's that technology?
Yeah. No, it's so important, right? It makes me think about, like positive psychology and just really, like you said, it's like kind of how you're setting those intentions and starting things out. Because the world is it's just dumping negativity on us from every way, shape, and form. I mean, I don't even watch the news. I haven't watched the news in years. Very rarely do I watch TV because it's literally we're being bombarded with negativity and fear, and that's the inputs that's going into our mind, which will then, expand from there. So it's like we really have to protect our minds. And I myself have been thinking of like, what is some sort of technology that could, in a sense, kind of check us, right? I'd like to help us to make sure that we're not going down those rabbit holes of, the dark rabbit holes, right? And it's interesting with the development of I'll say assisted intelligence, like quotation mark Meshell Baker says. It's interesting because I believe some of that stuff is going to start to get developed, right? And it's a little scary because the AI it's a bit unbridled, and we don't quite know what it's going to do yet, right? As it gets more powerful, so it's a little I think it's a little risky from an ethical perspective and in a lot of perspectives, but yeah, very, very interesting. So guests, we are coming up on time here. I'm going to ask a couple more quick things of you, Meshell, and then we have to jump. But, I know that you're a transformational speaker. I mean, I've had the opportunity to sit in one of your workshops, which is amazing, very enlightening, very energetic. I totally left pumped after that. And I've been through a lot of these. I've led them, multi-day workshops. And it was really great. I think we were out in Houston when I attended one of your workshops. Can you help the audience understand more about how you can help, right, in what you do?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Great question. And yeah, so I tell people I'm often hired as a speaker. So when I begin to ask them when they tell me why they referred to me or they heard me or whatever, I would say you can have a speaker, you can have an ROI, because change doesn't happen in the afternoon. Right. So what I really do exceedingly well is to help individuals establish the habit of believing in themselves. Right. So for whatever role that is, when you believe that you're completely capable, you are going to do exceedingly more, perform higher, you become resilient, you become more communicative, you become more collaborative, because you will stop allowing yourself to believe that things are happening to you and not for you. And some of this seems overly simple. And I tell people success is actually simple. We make it hard. Consistency, right? One of the first things I do with all people that I work with when I do the coaching is to have them establish non-negotiable habits of morning routines, because that's when you dictate who you are every single day, is by what you do when you first thing you wake up. They also create clear, compelling visions of what success looks like in that role. And then I help them to create and establish the habits and the activities that support making that role non-negotiable. Like they can't not become it, because they've put in place the things that will lead them there, and have them understand that it's a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Because there's no there. You're not going to end up somewhere where life gets magical. I always tell people, and you might have heard me say it, there's nowhere where you arrive where you see leprechauns riding unicorns, farting pixie dust under rainbows, right? This is life keeps lifing. And what I'm helping you to understand is how to embrace being growth mindset and continuously improving yourself.
Yeah, and it's so important is to put it into action. I mean, we've all been programmed, whether we know it or not. We've been programmed from the age of 0 to 7, and that operating system is running in the background. It's probably making 95% of our decisions, or keeping us from 95% of the things that we want.
Yes.
And unless we reprogram that,
yes,
and we understand those actions and processes and methodologies to get us past those things.
Yes.
So
yep. So it's basically embracing responsibility, learning and understand the power of accountability, and, creating a high performance resilience so they become unstoppable. They actually understand that because there is no there, stopping is not an option, because people they keep looking for breaks. When is this going to be over? When am I going to get somewhere? When is life going to get better? Life is better now today. So how do we do that? And that's what I show them. Then they perform better now today.
That's awesome. Well, really appreciate your time, Meshell. Listeners, be sure to check out her work and follow her on social media. Website links and social handles will be in the show description. One last thing, and I know you have to jump, Meshell. From our conversation today, what's one actionable piece of advice that you can give to our audience?
The thing I would tell you if you're listening right now is become relentless in your pursuit of creating a morning routine. If it's just 15 minutes a morning, right? And that is the book I always refer people to is the A Miracle Morning. And he has an acronym called SAVERS. Make that the thing you do before your feet hit the floor. Do something that inspires, ignites, empowers you, because how you start your day dictates your entire day. Don't worry about how long it's taking you to establish it. The goal is that I'm not worried that I've been doing it for 2 weeks and I keep missing a day. You'll never get there when you worry about how long it's taking. Remember, don't focus on the win, the WHEN, just get in your mindset. I will create this habit and my life is going to be amazing for it, and you will.
Yeah, love that. And I'm a living I'm living proof that that is amazing advice, because that literally that is a life-changing book, The Miracle Morning. So really appreciate it, Meshell. Listeners, don't forget to help your fellow tech humans. Share this podcast and follow me on LinkedIn at Javier Guerra 360. See you next time on the Tech Human Experience.
The Tech Human Experience